Konnichiwa minasan, I'm Mateu and this is Manga You May Have Missed. Today we're going back in time to the 1970s to take a look at Go Nagai's horror classic, Devilman. Devilman began life as an anime adaptation of the guy's previous work, Demon Lord Dante, by Toei Animation in 1972. The producers wanted to tone down some of the elements and to create a more human-like protagonist. From this was created Devilman, first published in Shonen Magazine in June 1972, merely a month before the anime started airing. Nagai was also behind the creation of other classic manga such as Cutie Honey and Mazinger Z. He's credited as the creator of the super robot genre. As time passes, trends in artwork come and go. You may notice that the art in Devilman is somewhat odd looking compared to what is produced today. However, I find that while unintentionally hilarious at times, the art still holds up. Also different from present day is that Devilman does not have chapters per se. The manga has been published several times, usually by Kodansha, in 5 volumes. These are the only breaks in the story that occur, so I'm going to designate an arbitrary stopping point for the review around 70 pages or so. With that in mind, let us enter the world of Devilman. We begin with color pages, dinosaurs, and the Great War of the Gods. It is night, and small spheres are falling from the air. The spheres coalesce into naked, winged men. Or are they? I'll answer my own question. No, they're not. They're hermaphrodites, so double the censoring. 3 of these beings gather in a clearing but are interrupted. They fly away in shock as a mass of tangled flesh bursts from the ground. The flesh breaks off into a mass of bodies, limbs, and teeth, then further into distinct beings. They chase the hermaphrodites into the waiting tendrils of their brethren. Elsewhere, other hermaphrodites are being hunted. One is caught, her body torn apart. Another is caught in the worst kind of tentacle hentai. She is then fed to her captors waiting maw. A third hermaphrodite is chased by a wicked monster which spits webbing at her. He is drawn into its maw. In response to the assault, more hermaphrodites take to the skies. They fly towards each other, melding together to form a warrior. The monsters swarm towards the warrior, who brings his sword up and back down with intent to smite. And smite it does, tearing the attacking monsters apart. The warrior continues attacking the monsters, which begin to pile together. They form their own colossus, going for a more abstract shape. As the colossus flies towards the warrior gathers more spheres of light, eventually losing shape and becoming a giant sphere. The colossus and the sphere hang motionless in the air in a standoff. However, all is not as it seems. We zoom in close to the colossus, revealing a tiny point of light emanating from the center. Holding the massive monsters together is another hermaphrodite, 6-winged and angered, siding with the monsters against its own kind. We take our leave of the ancient conflict and journey to the far-off future year of 1980X in the Himalayas, where we join a group of explorers. They enter a dark cave and proceed until they come across a horrible sight: monsters frozen in the ice. After untold millions of years, the ice begins to crack, freeing the terrifying beings from their long slumber. The explorers run for it, chased by the monsters, but are ultimately not fast enough, especially when their path is blocked by a gigantic, 3-headed form missing only Cassius, Brutus, and Judas in its frozen jaws. Welcome to hell. Meanwhile, in Japan, a boy is waiting in the schoolyard. He turns his head as the girl he is waiting for calls his name. She apologizes for making him wait, but he says he doesn't mind, as he had been reading in the library. The girl suggests that he join a sports club, but the boy, Akira Fudo, says that he doesn't mix well with sports. He says it's nothing to do with his physical ability, he is just not the type. This sends the girl, Miki Makimura, into a fit of snickering. She says that this proper demeanor is relatively new for Akira, who was once such a crybaby that he was called the fire alarm of Higashi Elementary. When asked for her source, Miki says that she heard it from her father, who was a good friend of Akira's. Akira pleads for an end to the unpleasant conversation. As they are walking, Akira gets called out. The challenger? The worst Jotaro Kujo cosplayer I have ever seen, and his gang of thugs. The Jojo cosplayer has a horrible case of reverse Popeye, with his left eye being held fully open while the right one squints. The thugs begin taunting the two with insults that boil down to Akira and Miki sitting in a tree. Class act. Akira suggests that the two ignore them and walk away, setting the thugs into hysterics when he puts his hands on Miki's back to guide her away. They demand a love scene for their private viewing as the two continue to retreat. Miki asks why Akira is doing a sensible thing, then berates him for not engaging with the bullies. The trio say they should hurry home before they get scolded by their mothers, and not to stop at a love hotel. Them's fattin' words, as Miki turns around and yells at them. I find this a rather unnecessary reaction to the kind of things third graders will say to one another. Akira tries to hurry Miki away, but she has earned not Jotaro's ire. The trio is pissed at Miki's words and say that she has gone too far. Things have taken a turn for the worst. I can only assume they mean the artwork. Miki is unimpressed and asks if any of the gang have heard of her nickname, Miki the Hands. She starts slapping the thugs, taking out 2 before being stopped by not Jotaro. He grabs both of her hands and slams her against a wall. She cries for Akira's help, but our pitiful protagonist is petrified. For some reason, Akira seems to think that explaining why Miki and he walk together will in some way help the situation, but it succeeds only in making the thugs more jealous. Miki pleads for his help, as in fighting them instead of talking at them, but Akira is still unable to help until a voice calls to him from off-panel. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Ryo Asuka. These are his sideburns, and this is the direction his head is angled at. Akira is relieved to see him, but Ryo is all business, demanding Akira help him with something. Akira directs his attention to the current situation, but Ryo says his need is more important. Miki protests, and Akira begs for Ryo's help, while not Jotaro is tired of being ignored. The sides are now an even 3-3, and it's just now getting interesting. I'm also starting to think that his eye might be a serious medical complaint. He directs his henchmen to take Ryo and Akira. The two pull out a switchblade and a chain. Ryo is unfazed and opens his coat to reveal a gun. I trust you remember my speech about Japanese gun laws. They aren't exactly easy for high school students to obtain.
Pistols are hard to come by, so I remodeled this hunting rifle.
The trio of thugs react to this as you would expect, hoping it isn't real. Ryo says that would be nice, but they shouldn't take the chance. Not Jotaro says he must be crazy. Ryo agrees. He fires a shot at Not Jotaro's feet. The bullies run away in terror, and Ryo motions for Akira to follow him. Akira gives Miki his school bag and races after Ryo, leaving Miki speechless. Akira demands to know why Ryo was carrying a weapon. Ryo believes that his life is in danger. He isn't worried about being discovered by the police because his enemy is a lot scarier. Akira is even more confused, and Ryo motions him to get into a parked car. Akira wonders who is going to drive, seeing as you have to be 18 to get a license in Japan, and Ryo says that he'll be driving. He's made some changes to his father's license and is 18 for now. Akira says that they're going to get caught, but Ryo reassures him that even if they are, Akira won't be arrested. The two speed through the strangely empty streets, Akira trying to start up a conversation. He says that Ryo could have killed the three bullies, but Ryo says their deaths wouldn't have mattered. Akira gives up and decides to exposit to Ryo about how his parents are living abroad because of his father's work, and how he's staying with Miki's family because he wanted to continue his education in Japan. He had to transfer schools, and therefore hasn't seen Ryo, his good friend, for about a month. In that month, Ryo has changed a lot. He doesn't think it's wrong to have changed or anything. Akira trails off as Ryo doesn't respond. There's an awkward silence in the car for a while until Ryo shouts that his father died at the top of his lungs. This is news to Akira. Ryo says that he is now totally alone. Professor Asuka was his only family. Now, there is nothing left for him. Akira realizes that this is probably why Ryo has been acting so strangely. He says that Professor Asuka looked fine when he last visited the Asuka household a month ago. Ryo says that his father didn't die from illness. He committed suicide by dousing himself in gasoline and setting himself on fire. He just kept pouring gasoline on himself as he burned. Strangest of all, though, is that Professor Asuka's remains were twice as heavy as his body was during life. Ryo says that his dad couldn't possibly have weighed 120 kilograms. The car drives on through a wooded road as Ryo provides more information. His father's body did not change in size, only in weight. Akira says that it sounds like some supernatural story, and Ryo mentions his father's inheritance. A frightening inheritance. He wishes he had never found out about it and would be happier if he hadn't. However, he's in too deep to turn away now. It's not a burden he can bear alone, and so he has decided to involve Akira in the inheritance. The car continues up a mountain road. It pulls up to the Asuka's mountainside residence and stops. The house looks on, dark and foreboding, as Ryo gets out of the car. He stops in front of the gate and says he needs to ask Akira something. He is about to push a horrible fate onto his best friend. He didn't want to involve Akira, but he has no one else to trust. Akira is the only one he can show the inheritance to. Akira says that he is afraid, but he does not wish to betray Ryo's trust, even if it means falling down to hell. Silently, Ryo opens the gate. Akira, in a retrospective narrative, says that passing through the gates would change his future, his dreams, and his very fate, as the sound of the gate and the unintentional mention of hell rang through his ears. The end. The Devilman anime was produced in tandem with the manga, but due to the studio's desire to tone down the more violent aspects of the series, the story is different from the manga. Akira Fudo and his father are the explorers in the Himalayas who are killed while exploring. The demon Devilman chooses Akira's body as his host, and is the sole occupant of the body. In the manga, Akira fuses with the demon known as Amon, and the combined entity is called Devilman. Devilman's appointed duty is to spread chaos and destruction in the human world to prepare for a demon invasion, a duty that he abandons after falling in love with Miki and her family. Sadly, Ryo Asuka and his sideburns do not make an appearance in the anime. It has not been dubbed into English, but apparently it was rather popular in Italy. The anime reminds me of cartoons from the 80s such as He-Man, which makes sense considering it was made in the 70s. It's what I would call campy, but still enjoyable, even though the only subs I could find were in hilariously broken English. Also, Devilman looks like the Pokemon Salamence. Devilman also spawned 3 OVA films, Devilman the Birth, Devilman the Demon Bird, and Amon, Apocalypse of Devilman, that do cover the events of the manga proper. The first 2 are the only Devilman anime to have been commercially released in the United States by Bandai Visual in 2003. The same warning I gave for Berserk applies here. This is a horror manga, and is often filed under tragedy as well. Devilman is gory, violent, and of course, horrifying. That said, it is also rather amusing, especially Ryo and his sideburns. There's just something about the way manga used to be written, a sort of intensity in the characters' actions, that you just don't see anymore. For good reason, because real people don't act like that, but seeing it every once in a while is extremely rewarding.
あれは誰だ誰だ誰だあれはデビルマンデビルマン裏切り者の名を受けて全てを捨てて戦う男デビルアローは超音波デビルイヤーは地獄耳デビルウィングは空を飛びデビルビームは熱光線悪魔の力身につけた正義のヒーローデビルマンデビルマン